For more on the issue, I talked to Jonathan Kiser. He's president of Kiser Environmental Consulting. I started by asking him where our garbage goes.
A lot of times it'll end up in what's called a MRF, a material recovery facility, and there it is properly sorted for market, where it can be then turned into other products. So the other good footnote about recycling is it does help you to reduce your carbon footprint as an individual, meaning it takes less energy to recycle that material than to extract it from the virgin source and start from scratch.
Jonathan, what about the burning of waste? How does that affect the environment?
Well, it's the old adage, one should look to the experience of the United States and Europe in particular, where proper environmental regulations have been put in place to guard against the improper incineration of trash. And so long as those proper regs are in place and are monitored carefully, like in the United States, it's the US EPA that does that, and also state governments and so forth. Burning trash for energy is one of the cleanest forms of renewable energy on the planet.
What do you say to critics who say, burning garbage or trash is discouraging people from recycling?
That's an area I've studied since the late 1980s, in fact, what the empirical data show in the United States in particular is that on average, communities with waste-to-energy facilities tend to have higher recycling rates than those that do not. And part of the reason is folks in those communities and the officials who help implement the plants and so forth are tuned into an integrated solution that tends to really focus in on recycling as well. And in fact, waste to energy in the United States recovers some 730,000 tons of ferrous metals on site that would otherwise likely end up in a landfill.
And speaking of landfills, what is the difference between a traditional landfill that we know of and a bioreactor landfill?
Well, the landfills, which are viewed as US EPA as the lowest form or preferred choice in the waste management hierarchy, started out as just dumps. That meant that you would just put the stuff in the ground and cover it up and hope for the worst, as contamination might happen as water got into the system. As regulations in the United States have evolved under RCRA, then we now have the modern landfill, which, as we just mentioned, tends to preserve the material for a long period of time, but you can also manage the landfill gases emitted from the landfill. The bioreactor approach aggressively goes after the materials in the system by actually introducing moisture to help extract the energy in a more efficient, predictable manner.
Okay, and finally, Jonathan, I was doing my research today and I found that Norway actually leads the way in turning waste into energy. And a lot of countries, UK cities in fact, are sending their rubbish to Norwegian incinerators. Should other countries follow Norway's suit?
Well, my personal opinion is that each country should solve its own problem as opposed to sending it to someone else. But I think it does sort of speak to the notion that in Europe in particular, they have a policy, much more so than here in the United States, that's saying we don't want to landfill anymore because it's the worst choice. Therefore, we're placing a higher value in a modern waste energy plant that will reduce volumes by up to 90%, offer that opportunity for energy recovery, and also many other advantages, as I mentioned, the recovery for ferrous metals, for example.